This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, hi everyone. Good morning. So we'll get started with today's session. So anyone new? Anyone have joined new today, or is like most of you are have attended demos already?
Today is my first day.
Pranit, yeah. And anyone else?
Yeah, today is my first day.
Okay, 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 fine. Yeah. Okay. Let's get started. So today, we'll start with HTML today, and we'll start learning HTML today, and we'll progress along with the course. Okay. Okay. So for some of you, I have already covered this concept because this is a little bit important, and there are a couple of new joinees, and there for some other people also it is not yet covered. So I'm covering that concept right now, and then after that we'll move to the coding part of HTML. Okay, so this is one of the famous interview question, which lot of people ask. A lot of people will be asked in the interview. So that is how does google.com works? How does google.com works? Not just google.com, any URL which you enter in the browser. How does that URL work? What all the steps happened in between? um, in between to see the response on the to see the response in the browser, to see the response in the browser, or to see the website in the browser. So whenever you enter here, whenever you enter here google.com, what all the steps happened in internally to see the response here on the to see the response here on the screen, to see the response here on the screen. So for that, so let's say, let's take this. So let's take some example. So let's say this is your browser. Let's say this is your browser, sir. Before that, you're able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for confirming. So let's assume this is your browser. So in the browser, let's say you entered you entered google.com. You entered google.com in the browser, like here I have entered, right, google.com. Like how here I have entered google.com. The same way here, let's say you entered, let's assume this is your browser, and you entered google.com. So whenever you enter google.com in the browser, what will happen is the first request will be going to something called as the first request will be going to something called as will be going to something called as DNS. DNS stands for uh, domain naming service. DNS stands for domain naming service. Domain naming service. What is this DNS all about, sir? DNS is nothing but DNS is nothing but your phone book kind of thing. Your phone book kind of thing, like how you have contacts in your mobile phone. Similarly, DNS will also have entries. Similarly, DNS will also have entries um, of the WhatsApp. Like it will have interest, like how your phone number will have, let's say my name is Arvind and I have a number of 1 2 3 4 5, like this in your phone book, like this in your phone book, like this it will be there in your phone book. Similarly, um, DNS will also have entries. How the entries will be present, sir? How the entries will be present? So on let's say this is Google, right? You entered google.com here. You entered google.com here. Similarly, for Google, like this, there is one IP address will be stored. There is some IP address will be stored. Let's assume that is 111 12 13 let's assume some 245, something like that. 111 12 13 245. Let's assume that is the number. Similarly, in this DNS, in this contact, or in this contacts app kind of thing. So in this DNS, the name here, whatever is present, Google, and what is the IP address associated to it? What is the IP address associated to it? What is the IP address associated to it? So in this DNS, lot of entries. For Facebook, there is one IP. Every website you access, every website you access, right, in the URL screen, in the browser URL thing, any website if you access, any website if you access, all of that entries will be present in DNS screen. All of this. This is a very big thing, not a small one. This is a very big thing. Lot of it, all the website entries will be present in this DNS. All the website entries will be present in this DNS. So DNS itself a big concept. A lot of like in your college, if you have studied computer networks in the fourth year, I think fourth year or third year, I think, I don't exactly remember. So you will get to know about DNS, but for now we don't require it. We're just trying to understand the concepts behind it. So DNS will have the entries. So how the entries will be there, sir? Entries will be like the domain name and what is the IP address associated to it. Like this, there are a lot of entries. Like for Facebook also, there is some IP address. For a lot of other things, there will be lot of IP. Like for Twitter, one IP address. For Abibus, Redbus, like all the website URLs will have the IP addresses present in this DNS. This is a very big architecture and all. This is a very big database. It's a very big software in which a lot of entries are present. Now, browser will make the request to a DNS service. So you might ask the question, Arvind, how browser will know what is the DNS service? How browser will know what is the DNS service? Like that will be taken by your internet providers. Whoever has given you the internet, that fellow will have that data. What is the DNS? Which DNS server to make the request to? So browser knows that to which DNS server it has to make the request to. That is provided by your internet provider. Like in Hyderabad, like there is Beam, Airtel. Those fellows will have the entries of the DNS, which DNS to connect to. Okay, so let's assume this is your browser and you made a request to DNS. You made a like browser made a request to DNS, and DNS will respond with this IP address. This IP address, like let's say this is IP address is 111.12.13 dot, let's say 245. So browser will make a request. So for Google, you have got this IP address. For Google, you have got this. For Google, you have got this IP address. For Google, you have got this IP address. Okay. Okay. So whenever you enter browser, whenever you enter google.com in the browser, internally browser will make a request to DNS Google, and then it will get a response. Like what is the response? Response will be the IP address. Response will be the IP address. Now what we do, sir? This IP address will be present in the browser. Now what browser will do? Browser will make browser will connect to this IP addresses. Browser will connect to this IP address. So browser will connect to this IP address. So first let's understand what is an IP address. Let's first understand what is an IP address. IP address. Internet protocol. IP stands for internet protocol. IP stands for what, sir? Internet protocol. IP stands for internet protocol. IP stands for what, sir? Internet Internet protocol. So it is nothing but every computer in this world, whoever is connected to internet, every computer in this world, whichever is connected to internet will have a unique address, that address is called as IP address, will have a unique address, that address is called as IP address. That address is called as IP address. Okay. As how every person who is holding a mobile have a phone number, like how every person who is holding holding a phone has a phone number. Similarly, every computer in the network will have this IP address. Every computer in the network will have this IP address. So now what Google will do, like how you first you go to the contact, and you, let's assume you get the phone number, and once you get the phone number, what you will do, you'll make a call, right? Similarly, browser first went to DNS and get the IP address, and after it gets the IP address, it it, it creates a request. To that IP address. So this IP address is also nothing but a computer. Nothing else. This is also a computer sitting in some other place, probably somewhere in US or somewhere in India or somewhere in Mumbai, anywhere. Like this IP address is also nothing but a computer. Like this is a different computer in different place. Now what will happen? Your browser will make a request. To this IP address. So this fellow who is sitting here, who is taking the request, that fellow is called as server. So people says server is down, right? Now what will happen? Browser is not able to make the request to the server. Because the server is not connected to internet, or the server is not present in the network, or the server is shut down. Like probably people might have shut it down, or the server is not working. So whenever people say server down or something like that, that means browser is not able to make the request to this server. Why? Because server can be down, or server is busy, like handling so many other requests from the internet. So most of the times you hear server is down from government offices. Those fellows always, like, server is always down, because they will keep server in very good location near washrooms, uh, in the open place, like that they will keep, and most of the times it will be down. So uh, that's okay. So it will make the request to the server. Browser will make the request to the server. And server will process the request. There is one more software present inside the server, that is called as app server. That's called as app server. Examples are like Tomcat, IIS, a lot of other things are also present, like IIS. Like these are some examples. It means this is another software present inside the server. That's called as application server. So this request will be taken by the server, and it processes the request, and it processes the request, and it will give the and it will give the it will give the response. Similarly, you order a biryani. You order a biryani in a restaurant. A server will take that request, and server will do some processing, and finally server will finally give you the biryani. So that is the response. that is the response response that is the response. Here it is, request. You make a request, and then you'll get a response. Browser will make a request, and browser will get a response. This response will be always in the form of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Always server will give response in the form of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Browser will only understand these three things. Browser will only understand these three things. The browser will understand only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It won't understand any other thing. It won't understand any other thing. Means if you want to talk to browser, if you want to talk to browser, or if you want to render something on the browser, you wanted to have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the response will be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The response will be given to the browser, and the browser will execute this HTML, CSS, JavaScript code. Browser will execute HTML, CSS, JavaScript code, and it will display the web page, and it will display the web page in the browser's screen, and it will display the web page in the browser's screen. So uh, the response from server to browser, the response will be always HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, nothing else. Always it should be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the browser will execute that HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and browser will render the response on the screen. Browser will render the response on the screen. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript is always executed in the browser. HTML, CSS, JavaScript is always executed in the browser. Only browser will execute the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and it will display the website. So whatever the code you write, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, whatever the code you write, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it will be always executed. It will be always executed by your. It will be always executed by your browser. Server will never execute the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. HTML, CSS, JavaScript will always executed by your browser. That's why the name front end. That's why the name front end. That's why the name front end or user interface. That's why the name it has come, because it is always executed inside the browser. Only browser will execute the code. So if you want to work on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, nothing else is required. We just need a browser, a web browser present in your computer. If you have the web browser, then that browser will execute the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now at the server side, there are people uses technologies like Java, C Sharp, whatever, .NET, Python, a lot of other things are there. A lot of other things are there are present in the server. So this server is not visible to the user. That's why it is backend, and this HTML, CSS, JavaScript is visible in the browser. That's why it is called as front end. That's why it is called as front end. That's why it is called as front end. Okay. So, but one important point here: HTML, CSS, JavaScript is executed by your browser. Is executed by your browser, but the files of HTML, CSS, JavaScript is sitting in the server only. Very important point. Please keep a note of it. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the code, the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the code will be executed. Means the actual running of the code is happening in the browser. But these files are just sitting in the server. They will not execute. Okay, they will not execute, but they will just sit in the server. Whenever the request comes, it will just respond that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Whenever the request comes, it will just respond with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the execution happens in the browser. But in the server, just those files will be present. Just those files will be present, sitting there, because it's not just one browser. Now we have to support for lot of browsers in the world. That's why we put the HTML, CSS, JavaScript in the server. Whenever the request comes, we will respond with the required HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then that page will be displayed on the screen. Okay. So now if I ask the question, who will execute HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then you will say browser will only execute HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Where HTML, CSS, JavaScript files are present, sir? They are present inside the server. But server will not execute those files. Server will just give the response. Okay, to the browser, saying these are all the files you need to execute. So server will just give the response. So server based on the request. Okay. So let's take like this, sir. Your restaurant will have lot of dishes. Your restaurant will have dum biryani, or your restaurant will have some other dishes, lot of dishes. But server will only create the dish which you have asked, na? Or he will make the dish ready which you have ordered. Similarly, server will only respond with files which you have, for which the request is for which the request is made, server will not respond with all the files. No, it will not do that. Whatever the request comes, for that request only it will just give the response. So whatever the request comes, it will just give the response. Okay, so if I ask the question, where HTML, CSS, JavaScript executed, they are executed in the browser, they are executed inside the browser. But where they are present, in the server. But who will do the execution? The execution will be done by the browser again. Whenever you request, to the server, the response will be always what, sir? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Any browser or any server in this world, will always respond with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. No other technology is allowed. Either you use Google Chrome, or either you use Mozilla Firefox, or either you'll use Edge, or either you'll use you are born in like little older, like then you might know, like some people might be using Internet Explorer. That also, they will also understand only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So they will execute that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and they will provide the response. Okay, so once again, the steps: first, it will connect to DNS. DNS will give the IP address back, and once the IP address is there with google.com, is there with the browser will create a request. To the server. Browser will create a request to the server, and server will process the request. And server will send the response. And that response will be coming on the screen, and that response will be always in the form of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. Now, one more point here. This browser sometimes is also called as client. Sometimes the browser is also called as client. Like how in the restaurant we call people as customers. Here, like, it is like, assume that this is a client. Assume that this is a client. This is called as a client. Okay, so probably in your college or somewhere you might have heard client server architecture, right? Like at that point of time, you might have heard that word, client server architecture. Okay, so like in your college or sometime in your career, you must have except that you are a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer. Apart from those two guys, like most of the people might have heard the word client server architecture. So what is client server architecture? Whatever you see on the screen, this is called as client server architecture. In college, they made it very complex. They say that this, in the textbooks, there are a lot of other diagrams. So that was made very complex. But here, you see, just browser, request, response. This way of connecting to the server is called as client server architecture. So there is not just one browser in the world, right? There are a lot of browsers in the world. So there is another browser, like there are a lot of browsers in the world. They'll also connect to the server. And then they'll provide the request, and they'll get the response. So this complete whole thing, the concept of connecting to client and server is called as client server architecture. So this is how google.com works. So one question for you, sir. Anybody can answer. So the question is, who will execute HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Anybody can answer that? Browser. Okay. So where these files are present? Server. Okay. Okay. What about others, sir? Your understanding, or like you need any questions so far in this architecture? We'll move to the next topic now. Hello, please respond. Yeah, please respond with yes or no, everyone, because it is really helpful for me, because I don't know. In your next tab, you might be opening Facebook, or you might be chatting with somebody else, or you're looking at your phone. Please don't do that. Please follow the class. This is very, very important. Yeah, if your mic is not working, I am okay if you can give a chat reply. That's also fine.
Yes, sir, you can proceed.
Yeah. Okay, so based on this background, so we'll first execute. So we'll write our first hello world HTML file, hello world HTML program. So this is the next topic for today. Today, first we have understood how Google.com works. This is very, very important from interview perspective, sir. People ask you these concepts. Like I've seen until 2 to 3 years of experience, people will ask this question. Don't think that, sir, I have 8 years, I'm keeping 8 years or 7 years of fake. I'll not get this question. We don't know. People might ask there also. But 90% they will not ask, but there's a chance still. But you have to remember this architecture. This is really important. Okay, so let us first let us write our first hello world HTML program. Hello world HTML program. So I'm using MacBook for writing the HTML for writing the HTML program. You can use Windows also. The process is the same. The process is the same. Okay. Okay. So let us write it first. Okay. So to write the HTML program, write the HTML program. So I told you, right, like one more point I want to make here, like to write of HTML, I told you the response will be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, so we can also see that in the browser. Let us go to browser and right click, and we can just say view page source. View page source. Whenever you see view page source, you see a lot of things over here. This is all the code coming from server. This is the HTML code coming from the server. Don't think that you need to write this code. This code is not written by a developer. This code is auto generated by the system, by some system probably. Mostly by some system or somebody might have auto generated this code. No need to worry if you don't understand also. Okay. You don't need to write like this code in your career. It is not required. Code is mostly not like this. Code will be very, very well readable, very nice. But this is like machine generated code. So Google fellows, they will generate code also. Like they will not use developer. Sometimes they will generate the code also using machine. Like machine will generate the code. Okay. This is like machine generated code as far as I'm thinking. So okay, like any website you can see, like let's say go to meeting, right click, view page source. Okay, now you see this code is readable now, little bit. You understand? Like this code is somewhat readable, somewhat at least. Okay, like this it will be. You can confuse your friends in your room or somebody. Just right click view page source. They will think that you are doing some hacking or something. In the movies they will show na. So like that it will be. Okay, fine. So now let us start with HTML program. Okay, so every HTML program, every HTML you write, it has to start with HTML. It has to start with HTML. It has to start with in angular brackets. Sorry, you are able to see this font here. Like, is it visible for everyone, or do I need to make it a little big? This
Can you
font
make
which
it
is,
up big so that it could be better?
yeah. Now is it better, or a little bit more? Now it is better. The HTML. Were you able to see this font, sir? Everyone?
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Just 1 minute. Oh, sorry for the delay. Sorry for the delay, sir. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. 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 Let's get started. So now every HTML starts with a less than symbol and a greater than symbol. I don't know what is less than, what is greater than. Like it will be, it's less than and it's greater than. somehow they have started like this. So every, like, if you want to write our HTML program, if you want to write our HTML program, it has to start with HTML. It has to start with HTML, and it has to end with HTML, and it has to end with HTML, end with HTML. Difference between starting and ending. Difference between starting and ending is this a slash. Difference between starting and ending is this slash. Is this slash. So whatever the slash you see, this marks this tag to be an end tag. This marks this tag to be an end tag. This marks this tag to be an end tag. Okay, this is the starting and ending of HTML. This is the starting tag and this is the ending tag. Starting tag don't have the slash, ending tag will have the slash. Very, very important, sir. I also sometimes confuse to keep which is slash. This is slash na. Sometimes I'll keep the other way. Like if I've taken like break of 3 to 4 months while teaching HTML, I'll also sometimes forget which slash to keep. But right now I remember. So the slash is like this. Please do remember this is slash, sir. Please do remember this is slash. Don't write the other way of the slash. This is slash is like a little bit problematic. So HTML and closing tag HTML. This is slash you need to keep. The slash only separates from starting tag and the ending tag. Okay. So let's say human body will have two parts. Now human body will have two parts: the part above the neck and the part below the neck, and the part above the neck and the part below the neck. What is the part above the neck, sir? What is the part above the neck? Tell me. What is the part above the neck? Tell me, sir. Anyone?
Header.
Head.
Head. Okay. Now we call it as head. Similarly here also we call this as head. So head open tag and head closing tag. Head open tag. Sir, I'm introducing a new word right now that is called as a tag. That's called as a tag. New word, new terminology that is called as a tag. Tag is nothing but every word na here. This is called as HTML tag. This is called as head tag. This is called as head closing tag. This is called as HTML closing tag. Okay. HTML open tag, HTML open closing tag. This is called as a tag. Head tag, head closing tag. Every piece of word in HTML, it's called as a tag. It's called as a tag. Okay. Every piece of word which has this brackets here is called as a tag. Okay. Now this is a head tag. So above the neck is called as head, and below the neck it's called as what?
Bottom.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Body.
Near body. We call it as body. Call it as body. Body open tag and body closing tag. Body open tag and body closing tag. Okay. So HTML, head, closing head, body, closing body. Okay, you're done. HTML is done. Now you have learned HTML. That's it, sir. Sir, I have kept here some space. I have kept here some space. It is not really required. This space is not really required. You can keep all of them in the same lines also. Nothing will happen. But I'll keep this space for readability purpose. What is readability? Readability, I'll tell you. Readability means you have written the code. You have written the code in your computer. You have written the code in your computer, or like let's say you're working in a software company. You have written the code, and if your code is not properly organized, let's say you leave the company, some other developer comes. Okay, he has to understand your code, right? He has to understand your code, otherwise he'll not be able to work on. So most of the companies follow something called as indentation. Indentation means where to keep spaces, where not to keep spaces, where to, like, how to write the code, all these things. There are some rules and regulations. You don't need to learn all of that rules and regulations, but whatever I am writing in the classroom, that is more than enough. Like whatever the rules I am writing in the classroom, or I will point out in the classroom, that is more than enough. So if you don't follow the indentation, right, like let's say I have written like this. I have written like this: head open tag, head closing tag. Um like this if I have written, then tomorrow after some days, let's say after 1 week, you came to your notebook and you have seen this code. You yourself don't understand that code. Like right now it is pretty simple, but let's say if it becomes big, then that will be a problem. So please always follow indentation. Okay. This is body. This is body open tag and body closing tag. Okay. Whatever you write, what you need to keep in the head is like why there are two tags. Arvind, we can keep everything in one tag. No? Like they have separated. HTML files are separated. In head, right? Oh, sorry, there's a comma, extra comma. Comma is not required. So in head tag we write some properties or some configurations kind of thing in the head, like some configuration, like something kind of things in the head. uh, but in body is the real place where the HTML code sits in. Whatever you write inside the body will be rendered by the browser. This head is for some configurations, some things like that. That is the use of head. That's the use of head. But the major code you need to write in the major code you need to write in the body. The major code you need to write in the body. The major code you need to write in the body. The major, like whatever the code you want to write, you will write that in the body. Okay. So sorry. Now in the body I will write any text, whatever the text you write, it will be rendered in the browser. So I just write hello world. I just write hello world. Okay. Now your HTML program is ready. Very simple. HTML open tag, HTML closing tag, HTML closing tag. Okay. Head open and head closing, and then body open and then body, and then body closing, and then body closing. And then in that, like we have written, and then in that we have written hello world. So now what you need to do? So now the code is ready. Now your program is ready. Now you need to do something. Okay. So what you need to do? You need to do something. What you need to do? Okay. Now go to your like right now I'm using Finder. Like if you're using Windows, like you'll have folder. Right now I'm using MacBook. So I have my Finder over here. So in this, I'm creating a folder. You can create any folder of your wish, any folder of your name. So I create folder. I call this folder as career IT, Angular, career IT UI batch, career IT UI batch. Okay, career IT UI batch. So now I go to this career IT UI batch folder. Sir, you can create any folder with any name, sir. But I don't have a problem. I'm just creating it for my own thing. You can create any folder with um, um, anything. So just give me 1 minute. I'll be back. Hello, sorry, sir. I forgot. Like, I'm on mute. Okay. Um, okay. So, like in Windows, like you will have Notepad to create text files, but in MacBook, you have to use a software called as Text Edit. Software called as text edit, so with which you create text files, with which you create text files. Okay. So like in MacBook, it is pretty simple. Like you just say control space and then control space, and then you just use the software called as text edit. There is a software called as text edit in MacBook. In Windows, it is Notepad. In Windows, it is Notepad. Windows, it is Notepad. So, like today and tomorrow, we use this text edit, and after that, we will move to another software. This is not very good. Text edit is not very good. It's not good for coding. Just for demo purpose, I'm just using the text edit. From I think after 2 days or 3 days, like we'll start using another software called as Visual Studio Code. I will explain about that software a little later, but for now, to solve our daily problem, we use the text edit software. So let's click on text edit. Okay, so this is your text edit. What is text edit? Nothing but writing some basic some basic code. Writing some basic code. Okay. So now whatever the code you have written here, right, they're related to HTML head, body, whatever the code you have written, just copy this, Control C, and then just paste it over here. Just paste it over here. Okay. So the same code, HTML head, body, hello world, just copy the code which you have written, HTML head, body like that. Just copy this and paste it over here and paste it over here. And you need to save this file, and you need to save this file. So you need to save this file little bit in a different way, in a different way. Okay. So I'll show you like how do you save this file. So you can just click on this and then name it as, so I call it as hello world, hello world. And so like you go to documents, file, we just go save this file, we just go save this file. I'm sorry, sir. Just go save this file. So like, so this file right now is saved in documents. We don't want this to be in documents. So whatever your hello world file, it is saved in documents. Now just copy this, go to your wherever the folder which we have created. So we have created it in career IT UI batch. Just go to that and then paste it, so and we need to do one more thing over here. Like we need to right click and we need to rename this as, hello world dot html, hello world dot html. So unless we save this as hello world, unless we save this as html, unless we save this as html file, this will never be, a html program. This will never be a html program. So please note that you'll save the file, you'll open text edit, you'll open text edit and you'll save the file, and you have to name it as .html. If you don't see .html, then that file is no more a html file. So please note that you rename the file and you save that file as .html. Click on, just say use html. Okay. So whenever you say .html, you have to do two things. So in kind, you have to see that as html text. If you don't see it as html, then you have made some mistake. So and right click, now open with open with Google Chrome. Open with what, sir? Google Chrome. Open with Google Chrome. So once again the steps, sir. Once again the steps in Mac, like it is little bit, I agree, it is little bit here and there, but in Windows and all, like it is pretty simple. So you go to text edit first. First you do command space. And then you get text edit software, and then go to the text editor software. And then once you have the text editor software, copy the copy the code copy the code copy the code over here. And then you can just go to file, and then file, and then you can click on save, and then you can click on save the file. Click on save the file. And then you can click on save the file. After you have saved the file, come to the folder and rename the file with .html extension, so any name you can keep, sir. I just kept hello world. You can keep any name of your wish, but don't keep god names, those kind of things, huh? So just give any proper name, um, and then you have to mark that with hello world.html. This .html is very, very important, sir. If you don't keep this .html, then your code will not execute. Okay, your code will not execute. Now you have this hello world.html. Right click, open with Google Chrome. In Windows also you will get the same option. Right click, open with, and you will get Google Chrome. So in Windows also you'll create a file. And then you name with and you name that with .html, and you name that with .html. Right click, open with Google Chrome. Open with Google Chrome. So you see there is some this kind of thing is coming. So this is because of whatever the useless things like /u, all this kind of things coming. This is just because of that text edit software. So rather than using text edit, right, like initially it has saved with .rtf. So rather than using the text edit, what we will do is, so So we will use another text edit software in. We can use another text edit software in MacBook. I'll just open that. So that's called as Sublime Text. Rather than using text edit, this fellow little bit formatting you need to do. That is little bit difficult, like to do in MacBook. So we'll open Sublime Text, another text edit software. So we go to Sublime Text. We'll go to Sublime Text, and I'll just say file. I'll just create a new file. So now what I will do, same thing in the Sublime Text. I'm just closing the existing files. Now what I will do, the same code which we have written earlier. So I'll just copy this code, Control C. I just copy this code and then paste that in Sublime Text. Okay, paste that in Sublime Text. The same code. So this is a new software. So this is Sublime Text. This is a new software. So in MacBook, working with this Notepad is little bit text edit is little bit complex, because those fellows do lot of things for that this thing. So that's why I'm using another software called as text edit. In Windows it is pretty simple. In Windows you can use Notepad. That is pretty good. The problem is with MacBook, like which software you want to use. So so right now we are using right now we'll be using um, Sublime Text. Right now we are using Sublime Text. Earlier we have used text edit, as that is not like not proper. So we are using Sublime Text. Now copy and paste the same code, and then now save. Control S. So now it will ask for where to save. So I go to Documents. So I go to my place where my Career IT UI batch is present. Just go to the Career IT UI batch, and then here. So I call this as hello world 2.html. I call this as hello world 2.html, and I'll click on save, because already hello world file is there. I don't want to use that file. Already hello world file is there .html, and click on save, and click on save here, and click on save. Now your hello world.html file is saved. Now go to the browser. Now go to this folder. Now you see hello world 2.html file is present. Right click, open with right click, open with Google Chrome. Now you see the proper HTML, the proper HTML code is coming. The proper HTML code is coming. The proper HTML thing is coming. So this is how uh, you need to write your code. You need to write your code in HTML. You need to write your code in HTML. So right now I'm using a software called as Sublime Text. So this is a text edit software which we use in Mac mostly. Most of the times we use this software. Tomorrow or day after tomorrow we will start with some other thing called as Visual Studio Code, with which we'll write the code. But for now, please stick to this Sublime Text right now. Okay. So so once again, I'm explaining the steps with Sublime Text, sir. Now just to do control space. So there is a software called as Sublime Text. There is a software called as Sublime Text. Just click on use that Sublime Text. Use that Sublime Text. Just click on the Sublime Text. And how to create a new file? How to create a new file? Just double click here. Just do a double click over here. It will create a new file. Just double click over here. It will create a new file. Or you can go to file. You can go to file and just do new file. Just to do new file. Just to do new file. So both ways. Either you can just do a double click and create a file, or you can just say file um, file, and then you can use a new file. You can use new file and then write the code, whatever the code you have written. What is that HTML code? Whatever the code you have written, that HTML code, just copy this HTML code and paste it over here, paste it over here, paste it over here in the Sublime Text. Now click on Control S, save. Now while you are saving, the name this with, like, now let's call it as hello world, hello world 3, hello world 3.html, hello world 3.html. Now we'll click on save. Now we will click on save. Now this file is saved. Now go to the finder and you see the hello world 3.html. Right click, open with open with open with right click, open with Sublime. Right click, open with Google Chrome. Right click, open with Google Chrome. Now you see that hello world code is coming over here. Okay. The hello world code is coming over here. So now we have seen this hello world.html initially didn't work, right? Hello world.html initially didn't work. So shall we see why it didn't work? Like, we'll see that. Like, right click, open with, we open that with Sublime Text, let's say. So once you open up the Sublime Text, we have written only this HTML head, body, and HTML, right? We have written that, right? Yes or no? And we have written the hello world. But you see, a lot of code has been coming in here in between. This RTF, this, a lot of things is coming. This code is coming. Why this code is coming? Because your MacBook fellow, your text edit fellow, this fellow think that, oh, this fellow is using this fellow is writing code, I have to give some formatting, and that fellow has given this formatting. All this code which you see over here, this is given by this text edit software. So that's why I personally don't use text edit. So I'll always use Sublime Text as my software. But like, most of the people don't have Sublime Text. That's why I thought of showing that with text edit. But that fellow has written this code. So tomorrow we will see how to install the Sublime Text and how to install Visual Studio Code in the computer, and then we will go in depth about HTML. So if you want to correct this file also, we can just delete all these things, and we can just delete this useless thing over here. And then we'll delete this body also. We'll just delete everything. And we'll just delete everything. And then we just say there's a bracket here also. And then we'll just go HTML head, and we have open head, and we have closed head, and we have body, we have open body, and we have closed body, and we have HTML. As I told you, give the formatting. give the indentation for making the code looking a little big. So just to say hello world. Okay, now click on this, click on this, and click on save. Click on save, and then right click. Now again open with Google Chrome. Open with Google Chrome. Now you see the hello world over here. Now you see the hello world over here. So the problem has come with text edit. That fellow is not a good. There are some configurations which we need to make it work or to make it look nice. We don't want to use it. Like we'll always stick to we'll try start using Sublime Text. Tomorrow I'll explain how do we install Sublime Text and how do we work on these files. Okay. Any questions?
Morgan.
Okay, fine. So okay, like okay, tomorrow like I'll show you how to install the Sublime Text and how to write the HTML code, and we will relook into this demo because text edit little bit spoiled our demo. So we will relook into this software thing a little bit more in deep tomorrow. Okay, I'll re-explain this completely tomorrow morning. Once we start the session, I'll re-explain this completely tomorrow. So okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah.